Everyone wants light. We chase it as if it were salvation. Clarity, peace, transcendence. We imagine enlightenment as a mountaintop, a place above pain, above confusion, above the mess of being human. We think if I could just find the light, I would finally be free. But no one tells you that the road to light does not rise upward. It descends. It leads not into heaven, but into the heart of your own darkness. Carl Jung saw this with a kind of spiritual precision that frightened most people. He said that what we call the search for light is often a disguised flight from the dark, that the very act of reaching upward is fueled by the fear of what lies below. One does not become enlightened, he wrote, by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The modern world has turned light into an idol. We speak of positivity as if it were purity, of success as if it were virtue. We flood our minds with affirmations, our screens with brightness, our words with optimism. We polish the image of the self until it gleams. And yet, the soul underneath grows dimmer by the day. You can feel it, can't you? That strange emptiness behind the glow? That fatigue that comes from pretending to be fine? Every time you chase light, it slips away. Because light that has not known darkness is only illusion. We seek illumination as escape, not realization. We want to feel whole without confronting what made us split. We want transcendence without descent, purity without shadow, peace without the courage to meet our own chaos. But life will not grant that kind of shortcut. The psyche is not fooled by your devotion to brightness. It will keep pulling you back toward the places you be abandoned, the memories you be buried, the desires you've judged, the wounds you've dismissed as weakness. The light you seek will not appear in meditation rooms or spiritual books. It will rise from the places within you that you have condemned. It will come from the anger you deny, the grief you silence, the envy you despise. This is the paradox. The more you run toward light, the further it recedes. The moment you turn to face the dark, it begins to appear. Jung understood that what we call darkness is not evil. It is unlived potential. It is the depth of your being waiting to be recognized. The pain you fear is simply truth that has not yet been accepted. To search for light, therefore, is to misunderstand the task. The real work is not to climb upward, but to dig inward, to walk into your own shadow until you find what has been shining there all along. Light is not the absence of darkness. It is what happens when you dare to look into it. We live in an age addicted to light, not the real kind that warms the soul, but the synthetic kind that blinds it. Everywhere you look, there is brightness. Glowing screens, smiling faces, motivational mantras promising endless positivity. The world has built a cult around the idea that to be good is to be bright, and to be bright is to never feel darkness again. But this obsession with light has made us shallow. It has taught us to fear our own depth. The moment something dark stirs within, grief, anger, despair, we rush to silence it with distraction, self-help, or forced optimism. We mistake numbness for peace and performance for healing. Carl Jung warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. The cult of brightness is our collective absurdity. It demands that we stay polished, that we appear composed, that we shine even when we are breaking. But there is a hidden cruelty in this demand, a quiet violence we inflict upon the parts of ourselves that do not fit the image of constant light. We see this everywhere. The person who preaches joy while drowning in depression. The influencer who sells authenticity while hiding emptiness. The spiritual seeker who repeats affirmations to avoid the ache that won't disappear. We are a civilization terrified of its own shadow, and in that terror we have turned spirituality into denial. We speak of raising vibration and staying positive, but what we are really doing is fleeing from the raw materials of transformation. True light is not fragile. It doesn't need to be protected from the dark. It draws its strength from it. The candle exists because of the night. The dawn is sacred only after the longest hours of shadow. But the modern mind has lost this sacred rhythm. It wants permanent daylight, constant productivity, endless clarity, eternal youth. It wants the comfort of illumination without the cost of introspection. It wants heaven without descent, meaning without suffering, awakening without truth. And so we build our lives like artificial suns, always on, always glowing, always performing radiance. But underneath, the soul grows cold. The shadow expands quietly, patiently, waiting to be seen. You can feel it in the fatigue that no rest can cure, the spiritual exhaustion of pretending to be enlightened. You can feel it in the numbness that follows every high, the emptiness that seeps through every success. This is the side effect of false light. The soul begins to starve. Jung understood that the psyche has its own ecosystem. When light becomes tyrannical, darkness rises in rebellion. The unconscious will not be erased. It will return through dreams, symptoms, or sudden crises, anything to remind you that truth cannot be curated. The light you project outward is meaningless until it illuminates what you fear within. Real illumination begins the moment your light touches your shadow. The cult of brightness is seductive because it promises simplicity, a world where pain is a glitch and darkness a mistake. But your darkness is not a mistake. It is the other half of your being, the soil where light takes root. To reject it is to reject the source of your own growth. Darkness speaks, but we have forgotten how to listen. We have been trained to see it as silence, as emptiness, as the absence of meaning. When in truth, darkness is full of language. It speaks not in words, but in sensations, symbols, and moods. It enters through the dreams that disturb you, the emotions that won't go away, the fatigue that feels like gravity pressing you toward yourself. When light becomes noise, darkness becomes the only place where truth can whisper. Carl Jung understood darkness not as a void, but as a field of messages from the unconscious. He called it the voice of what has not yet become conscious. Every shadow emotion, every unwanted thought, every inexplicable ache is the psyche trying to get your attention. But instead of listening, we medicate it, silence it, or drown it in light. We say, "I'm just tired. It's just stress. It's nothing." But the darkness keeps speaking, and its message grows louder. The soul has no interest in your comfort. It is only concerned with your completeness, so it will speak in the only way it can, through what hurts, through what you avoid, through what collapses the illusion that you are fine. Depression, anxiety, confusion, these are not merely disorders. Often, they are forms of inner communication, the language of a self that has been exiled from your awareness. They are the psyche's rebellion against a life lived in half-light. This is not to romanticize suffering, but to recognize its intelligence. Pain is not punishment, it is instruction. Every ache says, something within you has been neglected too long. Every sleepless night says something is asking to be seen. Jung often reminded his patients that the psyche is self-regulating. What we refuse to bring to consciousness will force its way there through crisis. When the soul cannot speak through dreams, it will speak through the body. When the body is ignored, it will speak through loss. When even loss is denied, it will speak through emptiness. Darkness then is not silence. It is the body of your unlived life trying to become real. The mistake is to treat it as an intruder instead of an oracle. The moment you stop fighting it, something strange happens. It begins to organize itself. You start to see patterns where before there was only pain. What once felt like despair begins to take shape as meaning. In this way, darkness becomes the medium of transformation. It holds what light cannot reach, the rejected, the repressed, the forgotten. And the only way to translate it is through presence. You do not need to fix it. You need to listen to it until you understand what it is asking you to integrate. The language of darkness is honest. It does not flatter. It does not lie. It will not promise you happiness, but it will give you reality. And reality, when faced completely, becomes light. Everyone says they want transformation until they realize what it demands. Transformation is not ascent. It is descent. And descent is terrifying. The moment the light you've been chasing begins to flicker, you feel it, the pull downward. Life starts to unravel in quiet ways. The career that once defined you loses meaning. The relationship you thought was safe begins to tremble. The identity you've spent years maintaining suddenly feels like a costume that no longer fits. Something inside whispers, "Let go." But your hands tighten instead. This is the threshold, the place where the soul invites you to fall and the ego refuses. Carl Jung saw this conflict in countless people, the longing for authenticity battling against the terror of the unknown. He said that the greatest obstacle to consciousness is not ignorance, but fear. Fear of meeting the parts of ourselves that the light has never touched. To descend means surrender. And the ego has been trained to survive, not surrender. It wants control, not revelation. So it clings to what is familiar, even when it's suffocating. You tell yourself that you just need more discipline, more goals, more light. But the more you resist the descent, the heavier life becomes. Because here's the truth. What you resist is not darkness itself. It is the death of who you thought you were. The descent asks for everything you built to keep yourself safe. Your certainty, your definitions of good and bad, your need to be seen as strong, your illusions of control. That is why it feels like dying, because in a way it is. The false self cannot survive the descent. It was never designed to. You may try to stay at the surface, convincing yourself that you're working on it, meditating, reading, improving. But the real work is not in ideas. It's in the collapse. It's in the nights when nothing makes sense, when no philosophy can protect you. The descent is not something you do. It's something that happens to you when your soul has had enough of pretending. Most people turn back here. They interpret the darkness as failure when it is actually initiation. They cling to old lights, ideologies, routines, identities, anything to avoid the freefall. But the descent cannot be escaped. It can only be delayed. The longer you resist it, the louder it calls. Jung called this the night sea journey, the mythic passage through chaos that every soul must take to reach inner wholeness. It is not punishment, it is purification. The descent strips away what is false so that what is true can emerge. The fear you feel is natural. It is the ego's way of saying, I don't know who I will be if I let this happen. And the answer, of course, is you will be yourself. When you finally stop fighting the fall, something unexpected happens. The darkness that once looked endless begins to feel spacious. You realize you are not sinking, you are being carried. What you thought was death is actually depth. And for the first time, the light you used to chase begins to glow. Not above you, but inside you. At first, there is only the fall. The descent feels endless, like sinking into something vast and formless. Every familiar point of reference disappears. You lose your confidence, your certainty, your story. You begin to understand what Jung meant when he said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But then, somewhere deep in the silence of that darkness, something shifts. The pain that once felt unbearable starts to change shape. It no longer feels like punishment. It begins to feel like communication. You start to sense that your suffering is not meaningless. It's alive. It's as if the wound itself is trying to show you something. You begin to see that what hurts most is also where you are most alive. This is the paradox of healing. The light you seek is not beyond the wound, but inside it. The world has taught you to treat pain as an intruder, something to eliminate as quickly as possible. But Jung saw pain as a teacher, the place where the unconscious reveals what the conscious mind refuses to learn. The wound is not an obstacle on the path. It is the path. When you finally stop running, you notice that the pain begins to breathe differently. It doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to open you. The heart that has been armored by years of avoidance begins to crack, not as a sign of weakness, but as the only way light can enter. Every emotion you try to suppress, like grief, anger, longing, becomes a doorway. You start to realize that the intensity of your suffering mirrors the intensity of your depth. The more you feel, the more capacity you have to live. Jung called this process the wounded healer. The idea that the places where you are broken become the very sources of wisdom and compassion. You cannot guide others through darkness you have never walked through yourself. The wound, when faced consciously, becomes a channel through which empathy flows. The light that begins to glow here is unlike any you have known before. It is not the sharp, blinding light of the intellect. It is a soft, interior light, ancient, patient, compassionate. It does not erase the darkness, it illuminates it from within. You realize that your pain was never the opposite of your light. It was its cradle. When you begin to see this, gratitude starts to rise in unexpected places. You find yourself thanking the moments that broke you, not because they were easy, but because they were honest. They brought you closer to what is real. They taught you what no success or comfort ever could. That light is not something you find, it's something you uncover. This realization doesn't make life painless, but it makes pain purposeful. The wound that once closed you now opens you to everything. You look at your scars and understand. This is where the soul learned to breathe. The darkness has not vanished. It has become luminous. And for the first time, you are not afraid of it. When the light begins to rise from within the darkness, the world does not change. You do. The same faces, the same places, the same routines remain, yet everything looks different. The air feels thicker, quieter. You begin to see the invisible threads connecting everything. Your pain to your growth, your fear to your strength, your past to your becoming. This is the birth of inner vision, the moment when sight is no longer confined to the eyes. You start to perceive from a deeper place, the one that exists beneath thought, beneath emotion, beneath everything you once called you. Carl Jung described this as the emergence of the self, the totality of the psyche, where opposites reconcile. The conscious and the unconscious begin to communicate. The fragments start to form a whole. The result is not clarity in the rational sense, but meaning. A quiet knowing that life, even in its suffering, has order. The darkness that once terrified you becomes the ground beneath your light. You stop seeing it as enemy and start seeing it as foundation. The fear that once made you hide now gives you depth. You understand that every descent was not a detour but a descent into truth. It's subtle but profound. You stop searching for light elsewhere. You stop believing that salvation lives in another person, another book, another future. You realize that everything you sought, love, peace, meaning, was waiting for you inside the very parts of yourself you rejected. From this point on, you begin to live differently. You no longer flee from discomfort or mistake confusion for failure. You begin to trust the process, the tension, the cycles, the darkness that returns from time to time. You know now that it's not regression, it's renewal. Inner vision is not about perfection, it's about presence. You begin to feel life as it is without dividing it into what should or shouldn't be. The judgments soften. You stop forcing yourself to be light and instead become luminous, not because you shine brighter, but because you no longer hide your shadow. In this state, compassion begins to flow naturally. You no longer need to save others. You simply see them. You recognize the same journey in their eyes. The fear, the resistance, the quiet courage of walking through the dark. And in that recognition, separation dissolves. The light you found within you begins to illuminate others, not by intention, but by presence. This is what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The self does not emerge in enlightenment retreats or moments of triumph. It is born in the silence that follows surrender, in the acceptance of both your light and your dark as one continuum. The light you sought was never somewhere else. It was the awareness growing inside the darkness you feared. And when you see that, you finally understand. You were never lost, only unlit. You reach a point in this journey where there is no more battle. The war between who you are and who you pretend to be begins to end. You no longer divide the world into light and dark, good and bad, pure and impure. You see now that everything belongs. That creation itself depends on contrast. The light needs the dark to reveal itself, and the dark needs the light to be seen. One is not the enemy of the other. They are lovers, eternally bound, giving birth to consciousness through their dance. This is what Jung called individuation, the sacred marriage between light and shadow, where the divided self becomes whole. It is not a moment of triumph. It is a quiet reconciliation. The light you once worshipped and the darkness you once feared finally recognize each other as kin. You begin to feel this harmony in your daily life. The emotions you used to resist no longer threaten you. Sadness feels like depth. Anger feels like truth. Fear feels like protection. You realize that nothing inside you was ever meant to be destroyed, only understood. Wholeness is not the end of suffering. It is the end of resistance. You stop chasing the illusion of eternal light and begin to live in rhythm with the truth, that day and night are both necessary, that life and death are two syllables of the same word. This union brings a kind of peace that cannot be described, only lived. You no longer search for balance as something to achieve. You move as balance itself. When joy comes, you welcome it. When sorrow comes, you listen. Both are teachers. Both are sacred. The integrated soul walks with both feet, one in light, one in shadow. It understands that denying either is a form of blindness. True vision is binocular. One eye sees the beauty of the world, the other sees its pain. Together they perceive the whole. You no longer fear the darkness returning because you know now that every descent is also a renewal. The night is not the opposite of the day. It is its completion. In the same way, your shadow is not your flaw. It is your fullness. Jung once wrote, "The shadow is 90% pure gold." You finally understand what he meant. All that you judged, repressed, or feared was never your enemy. It was the unpolished treasure of your own soul. The light you sought at the beginning of this path has changed. It is no longer a goal, a distant radiance to be reached. It is something quieter, deeper, truer, a presence that holds both the shining and the dark. You stand now at the center of yourself, not in the spotlight but in balance. You are no longer trying to escape the human experience. You are embodying it. And in this equilibrium, you realize that enlightenment was never about rising above your humanity, but about entering it completely. The darkness remains, but it no longer frightens you. The light shines, but it no longer blinds you. They coexist as you do finally within yourself. If you have listened this far, something inside you already knows. This message was never about light or darkness, but about truth. About remembering what you are beneath the noise of everything you've been told to become. You were not born divided. You were born whole, light and shadow woven together, carrying both the tenderness of dawn and the mystery of midnight. The world taught you to choose sides, to worship light and fear the dark, but your soul has been waiting patiently for you to return to the middle, the place where everything meets. This is your invitation, to stop chasing light as escape and to start finding it where it has always lived. In the places you avoid, in the feelings you silence, in the darkness you condemn. You don't need to destroy your fear. You need to sit with it until you can see what it protects. You don't need to erase your pain. You need to feel what it's trying to teach you. You don't need to fix yourself, you need to remember yourself. Because the light you seek has never been missing. It has only been waiting for you to look in the right direction, inward. The next time darkness comes, don't turn away. Don't try to think your way out of it. Close your eyes. Listen. Let it speak. That heaviness in your chest, that ache that won't leave, that shadow that follows you through every bright moment. That is not your enemy. That is your guide. The descent was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to show you that what you called darkness was only unlit truth. The part of you that you feared most, your anger, your grief, your longing, those were never mistakes. They were unopened letters from your soul. And if this journey has touched you even for a moment, if you felt something real move inside you, something that words can't quite name, then let that be your beginning. Keep walking toward it. Keep descending, listening, integrating. Keep letting the darkness teach you where the light lives. And when you rise, because you will, let it not be as someone who has conquered their shadow, but as someone who walks with it. That is what it means to be whole. That is what it means to be free. If these words found you where you needed them, if they made you pause, reflect, or simply feel less alone, take a moment to breathe. Then before you go, subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but for yourself. As a promise to keep seeking what is real, to keep meeting what is hidden, to keep walking this quiet path of self-remembering. Because the light you seek, the one you've been chasing your whole life, was never waiting in the sky. It has always been shining inside your darkness.